On the night of November 8, 1939, a thick crowd gathered outside the heavily guarded Burgerbräukeller beer hall in Munich. Inside, Adolf Hitler stood at the podium. He was delivering his annual commemorative speech, surrounded by absolute security and thousands of loyal followers. Yet, exactly 13 minutes after he walked off that stage, a massive homemade bomb detonated inside the pillar directly behind where he had just been standing. The blast was severe enough to collapse the ceiling. Shattered wooden support beams buried the hall in debris, and 8 people died in the wreckage. This map illustrates the borders of the nations the Nazi regime viewed as rivals. The Gestapo immediately assumed an attack of this precision required a massive conspiracy, funded by these foreign intelligence agencies. But the architect of this attack was a single citizen working alone, who managed to exploit a 13-minute gap in a totalitarian regime's security. His name was Georg Elser. He was a quiet, working-class German carpenter who acted on his own conviction that removing the leadership could prevent the escalation of the war. This portrait of Elser shows a man who looked like any other citizen. He had no military background and no formal ties to any political resistance group. Elser's plan required extreme patience. For weeks leading up to the speech, he sneaked into the beer hall and hid in a closet until closing time, remaining in the dark until dawn. Over several consecutive weeks, he used a chisel to manually carve a hidden cavity into the thick wooden pillar behind the speaker's podium. He collected every shaving of sawdust in his pockets to avoid leaving a trace. Inside that space, he planted a custom-built explosive device. Using his trade skills, he modified a mechanical clock timer, calibrating the gears to trigger the detonation in the middle of the scheduled speech. The regime focused its security on external threats and military-scale intelligence. Elser bypassed it all by applying the micro-level skills of a craftsman to remain invisible. By the night of November 8th, the bomb was armed, and the target was standing exactly where Elser calculated he would be. Then, a variable out of any human's control intervened, a sudden patch of severe autumn weather over Munich. Thick fog and heavy rain made flying impossible, forcing Hitler to cancel his planned flight back to Berlin. This locomotive reflects the pivot in the travel itinerary. To maintain his schedule in Berlin, the dictator had to reach the station in time for the railway schedule. The strict train departure forced him to cut his speech short. He walked out of the hall and away from the pillar exactly 13 minutes before the timer triggered. In a moment of historical irony, the timing of the regime's expansion was influenced by a localized, mundane shift in meteorological conditions. That same night, border guards detained a man attempting to cross into Switzerland. He was carrying a few simple belongings, along with the blueprints for the explosive device. The Gestapo spent months interrogating him relentlessly. They were unable to believe a lone working-class citizen could orchestrate a plot this sophisticated without help from a foreign power. Elser was kept as a special prisoner for years, only to be executed at the Dachau concentration camp in April 1945, just weeks before the war ended. Those ticking gears came within minutes of altering the 20th century. Instead, the bomb's failure allowed the machinery of war to continue its acceleration. Today, Georg Elser is honored as a determined hero of the German resistance, with memorials standing in the cities where he once worked in secret. His story remains a testament to the power of individual agency, showing that even the most rigid systems of power are vulnerable to a single person with the courage to act.